Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're gonna talk about my 5 worst backpacking trips. 5 big backpacking fails that I've done. I think a common theme of this talk today is gonna be that they're all trips that were at the beginning of my backpacking career. I'm pretty much able to go on trips now and not have any trips like this, except for one of these could really happen anytime. But let's jump right into it and let's start way back on my very first backpacking trip. So on my first trip out, I did what pretty much everybody does, and that's pack way too much stuff I didn't use at all, that just weighed on my back. My pack probably weighed somewhere around 40 or 50 pounds, and this was in like a day pack too, so it was super non-conventional. It wasn't a good backpacking pack that held the weight well. It was hanging off my back really far, and it was just super uncomfortable. Before I even hit the trail, when I was in the parking lot, I knew it was an issue. I knew then that I had packed so much because I was already in pain. We did probably 11 miles total on that trip, and although it was really memorable and it's the trip that got me started in backpacking because I've been hooked ever since, it was really a rough time, and I've definitely learned from that one. Number 2, and this was actually on my second backpacking trip also, running out of food and water. Now, I was with my wife on my second trip, her first trip, and we were in North Carolina at the Uwharrie Trail. And I actually made a video of that trip too, but there's no footage of it because my GoPro died in the evening sometime on night 1. But anyway, when we woke up in the morning, we had a little bit of breakfast. I don't even remember what we had, but all I remember is that we had one Lara bar. It was a peanut butter, maybe a peanut butter chocolate Lara bar or something like that. And that's all we had between my wife and I. And we really only had 6 miles to hike out that day. So it's not like it was like a life or death situation, but keep in mind that this was, my second trip ever. This was before I started running and my wife started running, so neither of us were in really good shape. We didn't have the cardio that we have today, and that one bar of nutrition to get us out on the trail, it was really it was a tough one. We were really hungry. Our packs, they weren't dialed in like they are nowadays, so super heavy weights. We weren't in shape. It was terrible, and we also were out of water as well. We drank most of our water in the evening and had a little bit in the morning, so we got to drink a little bit before we hit the trail, but pretty much didn't have any. And that's also before I knew anything about water filtration. So although it had rained the night before and the streams were flowing, just great, ideally for an experienced backpacker, we didn't have means of filtering water, and we weren't about to stop and make a fire to try to purify water. We just wanted to get out of there and get some food. So it was a really tough hike out. We hit up a Subway pretty much as soon as we got out. I remember just plowing down a 12-foot Italian BMT. 12 foot? Anyway, so we're driving down the highway about 10 minutes after that, and I don't know what it was, if my body was just so exerted, but I just felt so sick. And normally I don't make her drive, if we're on road trips or out of state, in unfamiliar territory, or really anywhere. She doesn't drive much. She won't drive in the rain. She won't drive in the dark. But anyway, I felt so sick. I told her, I'm like, I gotta just lay down and take a nap. So I got in the passenger seat and passed out for a little bit and felt better after that. But I was super kind of dehydrated, and even though I killed a big sub and drank some pop, it was weird. I was really feeling depleted of energy that day. It wasn't like it was a bad backpacking trip. It was just kind of poor decision making that made it a little bit rough on day 2. Number 3, this one also falls on trip number 2 in the Uwharrie National Forest in North Carolina. Our tent leaked. It was actually a really cheap Quest tent from Dick's Sporting Goods, and although we've had it out in the rain several times before that, it was a few years old at that point, and it leaked pretty good. It kept me up a lot. There was a lot of times in the middle of the night I had to get out and try to tighten things up so that it wasn't dripping on us, but it was really a pain, and it It was a really big tent. It was like an 8-foot by 7-foot tent, and it had your traditional like tarp floor. Normal lightweight backpacking tents either have like a sil nylon or like a Dyneema floor on them. Well, this is your standard, cheap $50 tent that had the tarp floor. Well, that did not help us for my other fail in the same night, which was we had brought an extra tarp. I don't remember why exactly we brought it, but we ended up putting it under the tent kind of to use as like a footprint. And I had it pulled out a little bit in front of the tent, so we had kind of a little porch somewhere to stand when we didn't have our boots on, and to just kind of sit our boots on and whatnot when we were out around camp. And I left it like that when we went to bed, and it poured all night long. If you've ever done that before, you know what I'm talking about. That tarp, the footprint, just caught all the water and pulled it right up underneath the tent. So, and that was something I didn't realize until probably really early hours in the morning, probably 4 or 5 a.m., that the floor was feeling a little bit squishy. There was actually like puddles underneath of us. Now, luckily, if we would have had like, a backpacking tent with a really thin floor, it would have really, really soaked through and it would have been terrible. It still came through. And, luckily it was about 50 or 60 degrees that night. So we weren't really in any danger of, soaking everything and like dying. But stuff did get wet a little bit, and it was just really an uncomfortable night in the rain. Number 4. Trip number 2, Uwharrie National Forest again. That was a tough one. You see the common theme here, how your first 1, 2, 3 trips, you're gonna make a lot of mistakes if you haven't gotten to that point yet, or if you haven't gotten past that point yet, I guess. Day 2, once again, no footage for it because the camera died. Also, kind of a fail as a backpacking YouTuber. I don't make that mistake anymore. But we both wore way too many clothes on day 2. I don't exactly remember what all I had on, but I know I had several layers, and I also had frog tog pants and a raincoat on. Now, it had rained all night, and we were concerned that it was going to start raining again, because it wasn't raining when we woke up. But when we were hiking, we didn't want to get rained on, so we left our rain gear on. Back then, I had no idea of how much rain gear does not breathe and how much you sweat. So not only did we not have food or water, but we were overdressed and just sweating profusely. And it's something that, you learn with experience. You learn by doing this more and more what you need to wear during different, weather, whether it's raining or if you're hot, if you're cold. You know what you need to layer, when you need to take layers off so that you don't sweat. In our case, it was warm out. And it's not like, if it was really cold and we were doing this and we were sweating, that could have been a really serious situation. But I think that attributed a lot to how sick I felt after the trail. Just feeling so depleted, and at the same time being so hot and sweaty. I mean, we were drenched. And I don't know why we didn't stop and take off our rain gear, because it didn't rain the entire time out. I think we had 6 miles that day. And it didn't rain at all. We just sweated, wore clothes that didn't breathe for no reason at all. So that's funny looking back on. Luckily, we made these mistakes in times where it really wasn't an issue. Number 5, I know you guys are waiting on it if you are a fan of the channel. And that is my Shawnee State Forest experience in 2017. I'm not going to go over this in depth because I have another video on this. I also recorded the whole video and it's on my channel. So I'll link both of those too in the end of the video here. But it is my infestation with seed ticks. Briefly, I within the first mile or 2 of the trail, I had what looked like dirt on my ankles. Well, I didn't realize till I got in my hammock that night that they were actually ticks, little baby seed ticks, and they were all over me. And I was so tired that night that I didn't want to pick them off. I tried scratching them off. They just wouldn't come off without really individually trying to get everyone off. and I just went to bed. I figured their ticks, they'll be there in the morning. I'll deal with it then. And well, they kind of crawled all around me all night biting, and well, next day, still there. Cut the loop short, did about still like a 27 mile, somewhere in there, I don't know. But back to the car, pulled some big ticks off me, drove home. 3.5 hours later of non-stop picking ticks off my body, till I was eradicated of that. It was just a terrible experience. I even say it in the video, that was the only time I've ever been out when I just was completely miserable, did not want to be out there at all. I had given up filming in the evening. I was done making the video, and in the morning I felt a little bit better because I wasn't so exhausted, and I turned the cameras back on and let you know how crappy I was feeling. Yeah, that was just a bad experience. So if you want the more in-depth story of some of these, check out the videos I'm going to link here at the end. And yeah, those are my 5, I say, worst backpacking fails. I can't say 5 worst backpacking trips. The Shawnee was the only trip that I really it was a bad trip. It was like the worst trip. All the other ones weren't really bad. They just had a few bad things that happened. So that's it. That's my 5 worst backpacking fails. Hope you guys liked the video. Consider giving it a thumbs up if you did. If you want to see more videos like this, thumbs down. So hit that subscribe button if you're not already. I got another backpacking trip coming up here in about 3 days. And it's looking like it's going to be a wet one. So those always go as not planned. So that should be a fun one. Hopefully that won't be in my next backpacking fail video. But thanks again for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. Every place that I got bit was like a very, very definite bug bite. Like if you've ever seen the show Naked and Afraid, where the people are just completely saturated in bug bites, that's what a lot of my body looked like, mostly my legs. Everything else was bit up, but it was sporadic.